Hey, welcome to the 75th edition of Drive Thru Review. Today I'm going to talk about the Manhattan Project. It is a game by Minion Games that plays 2 to 4 players in about 120 minutes, and I say that's probably pretty accurate. This is a game, it's a worker placement game. I'm a worker placement fan. One of my favorite games is Caylus. I've got some other, I like Stone Age, which is a little bit lighter of a worker placement game. I'm also a fan of a game they did last year called Kingdom of Solomon. This is probably the most appropriate predecessor to, or successor to Caylus. It's got a similar feel with, if you've played Caylus, you know about the provost and the sheriff and the other guy, the little white things. So this has an element of that in the game, which I really like. That's one of my favorite parts of Caylus, is that sort of interactivity and direct attacking of using the provost. In this game, it's called the Manhattan Project, and you're all trying to build nuclear bombs. Not necessarily the first nuclear bomb, but in effect, that's sort of the theme of the game, is you're using your workers, your scientists, your engineers to build a couple of nuclear bombs and get to a fixed number of points based on the number of players, and then be the first one to get those number of points, and then you win the game. So in this game, there is a direct attacking, direct conflict. You can build fighters and bombers. And fighters are there to destroy other players' fighters and bombers, and the bombers are there to destroy other players' buildings. So somewhat similar to Caylus, you can build your own buildings, but those buildings aren't available for everybody. They're only available to you for the most part. But you can bomb those buildings and make them unavailable for people to put their workers in. You can also spy on people, pay a little bit of money, and kind of build up an ability over time to place some of your workers in other people's buildings. So let me just jump into how it works, and then I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about it. Okay, just a quick high-level overview. Basically, you're going to have two boards that you're going to focus on in the game. You've got your main player board. All the players will be putting workers out here during the game. And then you've got your own personal player board here. I've got one in green. You've got two tracks, one for fighters at the top here and one for bombers, and you start at 1. And as you get more, you just move them up, and then if you spend them, you go down or they get destroyed. And you've got places for buildings here. You can see the building cards up top here. And you'll purchase buildings and then place them here so that you can only put your workers on there. Now there is a way for other players to put their workers on your buildings as well, but for the most part you're going to be putting them on your own buildings. Players will start the game with 10 money, and this is the money. In addition, players will start with 4 generic workers in their color. Players throughout the game will be able to acquire either scientists or engineers, and these are used in some special buildings and special places on the board and have sort of a special ability, which I'll explain in a second. There are also generic sort of contract workers, and these are gray, and they've got normal laborers, scientists, and then engineers, and these are available to all players in the game, and then they're sort of like a one-time use. So when you use them, and then at a certain point, which I'll explain later, they'll get reset and go back to the general supply. Now there's a real unique sort of mechanic and innovation that they've done here with the worker placement. So on your turn, you're either going to be placing workers or retrieving workers off of the board that you've placed. So when you go to place workers, very simply, you can place one worker anywhere out on this board. So let's say I place one here for argument's sake. And then you can place as many workers as you want on your own building. So I could place him, and then I could fill up these buildings here with workers. And then on my next turn I may place another guy here, let's say, and then maybe place on another building that I didn't place on the previous turn, until either I run out of workers or I don't feel like placing workers anymore. And then it'll come to my turn again, and then instead of placing workers, I can retrieve workers. And when I do that, then that's basically my turn. So you sort of waste a turn, but you need to effectively plan out how and when you're going to do that. So on my turn, if I retrieve workers, I just pull all the workers off of my buildings, and then all the workers off of the center board. Also, when I retrieve workers, I will return any of the general contractors, these gray workers, back to the general supply. In addition to that, any general contractors that are on the center board, even if they were placed by other players, will be removed from the center board and go back to the general supply. So let's quickly take a look at this center part of the main board here, and then I'll go over kind of the basics of the placing of the workers and then go from there. Well, if you look down here, here's the area where you're going to get yellow cake. And yellow cake is simply these yellow cubes, and it acts as a sort of currency to get plutonium and uranium, which you're going to need to build bombs. So simply here, if I wanted to place a worker to get yellow cake, you can easily tell what is meant by these icons here. So here, I need an engineer. So I require an engineer type of worker to place that there, and I get 2 yellow cake from the supply. This space, for example, this requires 5 coins, but I can place any worker there. I can place a laborer there if I wanted. I have to pay 5 coins, but I'm going to get a little bit more yellow cake. In the case of this spot here, I can place any worker for free. There's no requirement. I'm going to get 3 yellow cake, and then every other player is going to get 1 yellow cake. So it's kind of cool. A lot of these spaces work in that similar way, where you can get the same resource from a couple of different spots, but there's some payouts and drawbacks and whatnot, and some spots are sort of better than others. But you can still kind of get access to that resource. At the university here, if I placed a character there, I'd get 3 laborers. If I placed a worker here, I'd get an engineer. Here, I'd get a scientist. And then here, I'd place a guy and pay 3 coins to get either an engineer or a scientist. So you can kind of see, well, this is better, but this one will give you either or, so the last person probably will have to go there and pay a little bit extra. So if we look up here, factories. So if I place a worker there, then I'm going to move up my fighter 2 spots on the fighter track, or in this case, the bombers will go up 2 spots. If I place here, it costs me 3 yellow cake, but I'll get 5 money. In this case, if I place a worker, I get 5 money, everybody else gets 2 money. This one requires either a scientist or an engineer, and I get 3 money. If you notice this little red money symbol here, anytime you place a worker on a red money spot, you're going to pay $1 into the bribery dish. And I'll show you the bribery dish in just a second. It's up here by the buildings, though. And then down here, you can see where you're going to spend your yellow cake. You place a scientist 2 yellow cake, and you'll go up on the plutonium track. And this one is a scientist 3 coin, 2 yellow cake in the uranium track. Well, the tracks are right here, so you'll have a disc in your color. So every time you get plutonium, or uranium in this case, you go up the tracks. And these are going to be what's used to build the different types of bombs, which I'll go over in just a minute. Next, we've got the airstrike spot, and here you can just place any worker you want, and then you can spend your aircraft attacking other players. And let me talk about that later. But when you do attack somebody, you're going to cause damage to their buildings, so they're going to want to go to this repair spot. So if they put a worker there, they're going to pay 5 coin, and then basically get to repair 3 points of damage. Next, we've got the spy track. So if I went and placed a worker there, it cost me $3, and I'd move my disc 1 up on the spy track. So maybe I come there again, go up another spot, come there again on another turn, and I'm up to 3. Now, anytime that you place a worker here on that same turn, then you are able to place as many workers as you are up on this track on other people's buildings. Because remember, you place one guy out here, and then as many as you want on your player board down here. Well, I could place up to 3 workers, in this case, on other players' boards. But it's got to be on the turn that you place the guy here. So you place the guy here, let's say it was on 3, I place the guy, I get my bump, and then I can spend all 4 of those on other people's buildings. Next, we've got this building track here, and you can see these are the 6 starting buildings here, and then you've got a huge stack of building cards here, and there's a whole variety of them. So here is the bribery dish. So if you go to one of these spots here with the red, you basically throw a coin from the general supply, not from you, into this dish. And whoever purchases this cheap building will get all the coins in the dish when they purchase that. So the way that you purchase a building is you could put a worker in here, in this construction space right there. And then you're able to purchase any of these buildings. So you can see at the top here, you've got 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, 14, 20 coins. But if you had placed an engineer in here, then you can get either of these first 2 buildings for free. You can see it says 2 coins or an engineer, or 3 coins or an engineer, and you can grab these buildings for free. So let's just take a quick closer look at a couple of these buildings just to give you the general idea, and then go from there. So here's the player board. You got the 2 fighter and bomb tracks, and then some buildings out here. So here you've got the factory, and basically all the buildings are broken into, this is the requirement, and this is what it will output. So this one will require any kind of worker, it doesn't matter. And it will output either 1 fighter or 2 coins. So you just either move the fighter up 1 or you get 2 coin. This one will give you a yellow cake for any worker. This one will give you another engineer, so you don't always have to go to the main board to get new workers. This one for any 2 workers will get you 2 cake. This one is any 3 scientists plus 8 cake will give you 4 plutonium, which is huge, but it's also very expensive. And then example, 2 scientists, 3 cake for 2 plutonium, so you can kind of, figure that out for yourself, which is better. 4 coin, 2 scientist, 3 cake for 2 uranium. Now, if my buildings are damaged, and these are the damage markers here, they're 1 and 2 on both sides. So it's feasible that somebody could dump, if they really wanted to. Let's say I had this huge building here, and they're like, you know what, I don't want Joel to get all those, so I'm going to dump a whole bunch of damage on that building. Now I can't place any workers on there until I've repaired all of that damage. Now this is a ton of damage. So you basically should forget about that building, in my opinion, in this case. But you can, if you want damage of building a whole bunch. It's never going to go away completely, but it's basically effectively going to be totally disabled. Or you could spread damage, if you wanted, across people's buildings like so. So when you attack, you're going to attack people's buildings with your bombers. Now you cannot bomb somebody's buildings if they have any fighters left, basically to shoot down your incoming bombers. So you're going to have to take out their fighters first. The way that you take out fighters is with your own fighters. So let's say I had built up to 5 each. And so let's say the blue player had 5 each. Now one of us is going to have to attack the other first. So when I take an airstrike, I can take and spend all of these however I wish. So I could take and spend all 5 of my airplanes to drop all 5 of his airplanes. Basically it's a 1-for-1 in that case. So now, if blue has all his fighters down to 0, now I can take and spend as many bombers as I want to do damage. Basically it's 1 bomber per damage that you'll place on a building. And that's simply it. So you're going to have sort of an arms race, a little bit of chicken playing, and a little bit of trying to get around being bombed, because you are going to be bombed, especially if you look like you're in the lead. So this is a real interesting aspect. An aspect of the game that honestly I was a little bit worried about, but it's awesome. I'm glad they have it. I'm glad they didn't remove it for whatever reason back in early development. Maybe they thought of getting rid of it, I don't know. But I'm glad they kept this. This makes the game what it is. So I've talked about placing workers, retrieving workers, some of the attacking of the aircraft and that. So there's one last space I want to talk about, and this is design of bombs. So you can see this requires a scientist and an engineer. So once a player places a scientist, engineer on the spot, then we're going to go into sort of a draft of bomb cards. And everybody's going to participate in this, not just the one that placed the workers there. So let me explain how that works. So beside the board, you're going to have this deck of bomb cards, and you're going to always have face up the number of players plus 1. So if I had chosen the bomb design action, I will take all of these cards, and then I'm going to choose one of these cards and pass the rest to my left. The next player will take one, the next player will take another one, and then this other card will come back to me. So I will get 2 cards because I'm the one that chose the action, and everybody else will still get 1 card. So let me break down these cards pretty quickly here. So you've basically got 2 types of bombs. You've got uranium bombs and plutonium bombs. And both of these require workers to be able to build them. So if I had these in my hand, I could play this face up. If I had 2 scientists and 4 engineers, and I'd put them on top of the card, and I'd have to spend 7 plutonium. Remember, you have the plutonium and the uranium track. So you need that much of whatever resource to spend, and then you can build the bomb. So you can see here, there's a couple numbers at the bottom. On the uranium, you've got 1 number, and this is the number of points it's worth. So I build this, I've got 30 points. And the first player to get X number of points, let's say in a 3-player game, I believe it's 60. I have to look it up in the rules every time. So in a 3-player game, I'm already halfway there. So usually you're going to build maybe 2, 3 bombs, depending on the number of players in that. But if you look at the plutonium, you've got 18 points, and then it could also be worth 32 points. And this is going to come from test firing a bomb. Now next to the board, you're going to have these sort of bomb test tokens here. And depending on the number of players, you set these up a little bit differently. But so in a 3-player, you'll have like the 8, the 4, and the 0. And the way that I do this is after I've built the bomb, I can just decide to test it, which basically is going to lose it. So I'm going to lose it and then stick it under the bomb card deck. Then I'm going to take whatever the top token on this stack is and place that in front of me. So it's worth this many points. So the first person to test the bomb is going to get 8 points, but they've lost this bomb now. So you don't want to do this with a very high value point card. You'd want to do it like with this other one. So you lose 10 points, but hey, you got 8 if you did it first. But now when you build a bomb, and any bombs that you may already have in front of you are going to be worth this red number. So if I had these 2 in front of me, I tested this one, got rid of it, then I get the 8 points for the bomb test token, plus this is now worth 32 points. That's a good payoff. Now the last thing you can do with a bomb is actually load the bomb. And you can see each of these has a load bomb cost here. And when you do that, you have to spend 1 bomber, and then you pay that much money. And then you'll take and load a bomb with this little token, so it's going to be worth an extra 5 points. Now you can do all these bomb actions anytime you want on your turn, but only on a turn when you place workers. If you're doing a turn where you retrieve workers, you can't do any of this stuff. But if you've placed a worker and then you want to build some bombs on that, you can do that. So you can either build bombs from your hand, load bombs, test bombs, whatever you want to do as many times as you can do it on your turn. Okay, hope you enjoyed that overview. I think you can tell I'm a little bit excited about this game. Yeah, I really quite enjoy this game. It's been a while where I've had a game sort of feel like Caylus to me. And Caylus is a game I love, and I hate to detract from this game by always comparing it to Caylus, and Caylus always gets compared to by other worker placement games. But there's worker placement games, and then there's worker placement games where your palms sweat. And this is one of those. So you've got sort of the attacking and the bombing, and I think a lot of people might be turned off by that. But it's going to take you a couple of plays to figure out, okay, stop crying about getting your buildings bombed, because it's going to happen. So you need to set yourself up to, okay, I've lost that building, I need to have backup buildings, I need to sort of go up the spy track so I can use the jerks buildings that just bombed me. I need to be able to time all of that. Now the timing is really tricky. So you've got placement, 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 retrieve, but you kind of want to wait for that other play to retrieve, so he's going to open up all of his buildings, all those spots are going to open up on the board, because they're going to be blocked until the guy retrieves. So that repair spot's going to get used, and then it may not be available for for a while. So you got the spy track. You've got to build up your own military, so it's sort of an arms race kind of thing, which is kind of cool. And that part really reminds me of the Provost, where it's like, if you played Caylus, you get a lot of money, or you go to that Provost spot and you say, okay, let's make a deal here. Because you can make a deal in this game, and it even says in the rules where, okay, you can make deals just based on who's going to attack who. So that's really interesting. Now some people are not going to like that. But I think, I've seen hurt feelings playing Caylus, and I haven't seen any hurt feelings playing this. I'm playing with a different group now than when I played that. But I could see it happening. So just know that going in, but it's something that I would probably thrive on. And the thematicness of everything is just, it's so good. It's so good, thematically fun. I could sit here and tell you again and again and again why I like it. Components are great. Those little worker things are really thick. I love the timing and the tenseness of it, because once people start, building those bombs, and it's not going to be too long. I mean, the game says 2 hours, but I think as people play it more and more, that time is going to shrink, except maybe like in a 5-player game. So you've got to be on your toes. You can't be dilly-dallying about it. You can't just go, I'm going to go here and here and here. No, you have to come out of the gate ready to play the game. And I love it. And the building cards, the game is weird. On the surface, I was like, God, why are the building cards just so random? But they're not that random. They all kind of do the same thing, but there's some that are like, you get 3 workers and you get 2 cake, and you do 2 scientists and you get 2 cake. So it's like, well, which one's better? I could do any workers on this one, I could do 2 scientists on this one. And it makes the game play a lot differently, because some of the cards will get you a lot of fighters, and some will get you a lot of bombers, and some will go plutonium or uranium strong. So you've got to always sort of make a judgment about what's going to be best for you and what the best strategy is going to be. Is managing all these resources. So anyway, this is a great game. One of the best I've played in a while. It's 2011 release, and let's just play the game. I'm sick of talking about it. Thanks, bye.